Hey guys, Abe Ovadia here. We're at the FJA Masters in the Breakers, West Palm, beautiful hotel. And I'm here with attorney Greg Yaffa from Dominic, Cunningham, and Yaffa.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. So he is an amazing attorney. He handles a lot of insurance bad faith litigation. And he's here to tell us a little bit about bad faith is, to explain it to a normal guy like myself. And we're going to talk about... We're gonna get to know you.
I like
finally.
it.
Yeah,
I like it.
So I got to know you over hibachi dinner once, which was really cool. No shrimp in the hat toss,
or an onion volcano
they screwed us on that. Yeah, we got shafted. But so tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, where you grew up, where'd you go to school, and maybe how you became a lawyer.
Okay, so again, my name is Greg Yaffa, and I grew up in Miami, Florida.
Went to 305. Let's go. That's where I was born.
Went to Palmetto High School. Okay. Some pretty famous people have come out of there.
You being the most.
I don't know about that, but I tend to lean towards Kimbo Slice.
Oh, he's from there.
He was there.
He was in the hood, right?
He was a man among boys. He was somebody that looked like he was about 15 years older than all of us, just because he was so big.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to high school in Palmetto, and I was following in my brother's footsteps. Both of my brothers are attorneys.
Okay.
And I went to college. I played baseball at University of Richmond.
Okay.
And when college ended and I realized there was no life beyond college in baseball for me, didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I went and I watched my brothers try a few cases and very quickly realized that helping people is something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do for others what I was watching them do.
Awesome.
And to be able to provide lifelong care, the money that is required for lifelong care to some of these folks that didn't have the means to get the care was something that it really drew me to it.
Cool. Okay. And so right now at your firm, you guys are a powerhouse firm. Every PI lawyer knows everybody at your firm. Tell us a little bit about some of the insurance bad faith cases that you handle, and what is insurance bad faith too for regular people watching? So
we are a boutique firm and we handle all kinds of claims. We do a lot of insurance bad faith. We do a lot of medical malpractice, nursing home abuse. We really handle any type of catastrophic injury.
Okay.
We try to distance ourselves from the stereotypical whiplash cases and things like that. We really focus on catastrophic, debilitating injuries.
Okay.
And so where insurance bad faith comes into that mix is it's basically insurance company malpractice.
Okay.
So you and I, we have licenses, we drive cars, and we have insurance. Mm-hmm. And the reason we have this insurance is to protect us. God forbid we're involved in a crash and we hurt somebody. Our insurance companies are supposed to step up to the plate. They're supposed to deal with the person that was injured fairly and honestly and settle their case that they would have against us when they can do that. Mm-hmm. If the insurance companies, instead of settling the case and doing the right thing, decides that it wants to save itself some money or try to take advantage of somebody who's not represented, they can act in bad faith. The insurance company can blow that opportunity to protect you, to settle the case that's being made against you, and then you get sued. And so if you get sued because the insurance company was messing around and didn't settle when they could and should, the insurance company can be on the hook for the full amount of the judgment that's entered against you.
Okay.
So for example, we had a case that from the date of the crash to the date that the Florida Supreme Court issued its final ruling was over 12 years.
Wow.
And that was a case where a gentleman had a $100,000 insurance policy.
Okay.
And he was driving his Hummer and a motorcycle. He didn't see the motorcycle. He cut in front of the motorcycle and the motorcyclist died. And his insurance company paid the $100,000 policy pretty quickly. But the attorney who was representing the widow said, and it turned out it's Sean Dominic now, one of my law partners, but at the time we weren't working in the same firm.
Okay.
So Sean was representing the widow, the deceased family, and the insurance company paid the $100,000 within 9 days. And Sean said, "Thank you, but I see that your insured was driving a pretty new Humvee it was in the middle of the day. We need to know whether he was in the course and scope of his employment. We need to know whether he's got any collectible assets. We need to know what other avenues of recovery are out there before I can tell my client that this is all that's available and you need to take that money. And the insurance company, Geico, basically said, go pound sand. We're not going to give you the information you need.
Okay.
And so because Geico failed to cooperate and to do what it needed to do to protect its insured, Sean went ahead and he got a judgment against the Geico insured.
The guy who drove the
for millions of dollars.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, Geico ended up paying exponentially more than that because it fought it to the end. But Geico was on the hook for satisfying that multi-million-dollar judgment as opposed to the guy that caused the crash. Geico's insured.
I was just about to say, the guy's driving a Humvee and he's only got 100,000 policy. His insurance agent, whoever sold him that policy, should be,
So the claims against the agents are a little tricky, but absolutely that's something that always needs to be looked into also. Yeah. And one of the other reasons that Sean decided he needed more information was because the Humvee was also titled in this insured's company's name. Oh. And so it wasn't like the Humvee was in Greg Yaffa's name. It would be the equivalent of it being in the name of Dominic Cunningham and Yaffa. Wow. And all of a sudden you see that and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, there's got to be more insurance here. And if the crash was caused in the middle of the workday and you were on your way to a meeting, a deposition, things like that, there may be a business insurance policy that would also apply.
Okay.
And so one of the things when you're representing catastrophically injured people, one of the things you absolutely have to do is make sure you uncover all potential avenues of recovery. You need to make sure you've identified all insurance policies that may apply. You need to, and if somebody is underinsured, but they have assets up the wazoo, which you don't normally see, but if that happens, we have an obligation as attorneys to know that and to advise our clients so our clients know whether or not it makes sense for them to accept the money that's being offered or to pursue a different avenue.
Right. Okay. And so, just like a similar case that I had that really went nowhere was a dram shop case, but the guy only had, I think, like a 1020 policy and he drove at full speed, rear-ended my client. And then my client hit another car. That car went up in flames with children in it, horrible injuries. Some died, some burned. My client had, oddly enough, very few injuries. It was the other car, for whatever reason, caught on fire. I don't know why. Yeah. Similar case. There was a potential dram shop case. Dram shop's like going after the bar for over serving the local drunk that everybody knows is always a regular. But similar thing. So uncovering these policies is really what you do is figuring out where are all these possible policies. And then if the insurance companies don't want to do the right thing, like in this case with the financial affidavit, is that what happened? You guys sent a financial affidavit and Geico told you, we don't care.
So you've heard about the case. So in this case, what ended up happening was Sean Dominic said to Geico, thanks for the check, but I can't adequately advise my client. I need to know X, Y, and Z, and I want to take your insured statement.
Okay.
And so it was not
Pre-suit.
that. Correct.
Okay.
This was before any lawsuit was filed.
Okay.
And so Sean didn't give them a financial affidavit to fill out because anybody who does this knows if you give a booklet of paper to somebody and say, I want to know everything from your social security number to your bank account numbers to the amounts of money you're bringing in on a weekly, monthly, annual basis, folks don't want to fill those sorts of things out. They're very personal and very invasive. And so normally when you get an affidavit like that, people say, I'm not doing it. Right. And Sean didn't want to run into that. So he just simply asked for a statement where he could talk to the insured, Geico's insured, about those topics.
Okay.
And then once he knew that information, he could confirm it and ultimately decide where to go. But Geico got in the way and knee-jerk reaction without even consulting with its insured said, nope, we're not doing that.
Okay.
And so to make matters worse, Sean went ahead and he confirmed in writing, we've asked for this information and you've declined it. And Geico was obligated to provide a copy of that letter to its insured. And when its insured saw that letter, the insured called Geico's adjuster that was handling the claim and read her the riot act. And he said, don't you dare put words in my mouth. I never said I wouldn't sit for a statement. In fact, I'm more than willing to do that. And I have a personal attorney. I have personal counsel that I want to be involved and I want to participate. He's out of town right now. And when he gets back into town, we'll do this. But please make sure you tell Mr. Dominic, I am ready, willing, and able to do this. And so the adjuster's supervisor saw this letter that was sent back by the insured. And he said, did you really do this? Did you decline a statement without consulting with our insured? And the adjuster said, well, it's not something we normally do. And the supervisor said, you make sure you let the plaintiff's attorney know, Mr. Dominic know, that we are going to do what he wants so that we can protect our insured. This adjuster never called Sean, never wrote a letter, never said, we're ready, willing, and able to do it. So all Mr. Dominic knew, all Sean knew, was he asked for it. Geico said no. That was the end of the case. And so in order to find out the information that he needed to, he was forced to file the lawsuit. And by that point, Geico had already acted in bad faith, and it was too late.
Wow. Okay. And so you guys, you guys had a trial on damages. Sean
tried the underlying case.
Okay.
And that case ultimately resulted in, I want to say, a $750,000 verdict.
Okay.
He also sued a company that was in charge of construction.
Okay.
But the amount against the insured was only $750,000. And Sean said to Geico, you know what? Go ahead and pay me that $750,000. We'll call it a day. Geico said no. Geico appealed it. Or actually, no, Sean appealed it when Geico said no.
Okay.
And it got reversed, and Sean got to try the case again. And when he tried the case again, it resulted in an $8.5 million judgment against Geico's insured.
Wow.
And so we litigated the bad faith case. We filed it. It got removed to federal court. It got remanded back to state court. Fred Cunningham and I tried the case. We won it.
You tried the
bad faith
portion. So you had a regular trial on damages and then another trial just to determine if there was bad faith.
Correct. And I should have mentioned that earlier. Yeah, bad faith is a separate cause of action.
Okay.
And so the only time that the bad faith claim becomes ripe is after there has been an underlying trial and the insured, the person who purchased the insurance policy, gets hit with an excess judgment.
Okay.
Only then can you file the bad faith lawsuit.
Okay.
And so Fred and I filed that bad faith lawsuit. Geico removed it to federal court. We got it remanded back to state court. We ultimately tried the case and we won it in Palm Beach County. And then Geico appealed that victory. And the 4th District Court of Appeal took it away from us and said, we don't care what that jury did. As a matter of law, you should not have won that case. You lose, Geico wins.
Wow.
Which is pretty unheard of. Normally what the appellate courts do is they will analyze a fact pattern and say, there was a mistake at the trial level and you have to go back and retry the case the same way that Sean did in the underlying case.
Okay.
But in this case, the 4th District Court of Appeals said there was error. This case, you never should have won this case, and so you don't get to go try it again. We're going to enter the judgment in favor of Geico. You lose.
Okay. I got to stop you.
Yeah.
Why do you know? Maybe you don't know why. It's been a while, but do you know why the jury came back on the first go round 750 and the second go round for millions? Was there a specific, simple reason for that, or was it just that Sean got to do round 2 and he honed in on round 2 and knew what buttons to push with the jury and stuff like that?
I think it's more the latter.
Okay.
Because what ended up happening was during the first case that Sean litigated, he litigated against a construction company and Geico's insured.
Okay.
And so he was saying there was a construction defect, the way that they set up the cones, whatever they did created an obstruction to Geico's insured's vision, which in part contributed to the crash.
Okay.
Once that case was over, he settled with the construction company. Okay. And now the second trial was laser focused against the at-fault driver, which was Geico's insured.
Okay.
But he also had a new panel of jurors that may have viewed damages very differently. So
yeah. 750 sounds kind of low for a guy on a motorcycle, but also
I
mean,
think the total amount of the judgment combined was more, but the
okay.
portion that was attributed to the Geico insured was 750,000.
Gotcha. Because I've seen some people, they just don't like motorcyclists. They're like, oh, they're all a bunch of rabble rousers. And,
Absolutely, there's definitely
Yeah.
a bias there, and that's another thing that we have to always evaluate when we're looking at a new case is how likable is our client.
right.
Do we have the wholesome librarian, or do we have the guy riding the crotch rocket?
Right.
Who's
Right.
the jury going to sympathize with?
Yeah. You just reminded me, I had a guy who was in the Air Force in the Panhandle riding a motorcycle on the highway. He gets into an accident and a guy pulled over and he says, hey man, that guy on the motorcycle just blew past me. And I said, he's going to get in an accident. And then, and literally stopped his car, got out. The guy's in a motorcycle, laid out on the floor, messed up. And he takes time out of his day to go talk to the cop and tell him that guy probably caused it because he blew past me. And I'm just going, who are these people? You know?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah, so they pop out of the woodwork. But lesson, if you're watching and you're Geico, don't let Greg or Sean have a second bite at the apple. They will destroy you.
That's funny. I like that.
Man. So awesome. So you have this. So there was really 3 trials, right? There was 2 that Sean did for the underlying case, and then a 3rd trial for bad faith. And so you're up on appeal. 4th DCA says something.
Says you lose, and we had a real decision to make at that point because we knew the next level of appeal. If we go above the 4th District Court of Appeals heads, we're going to the Florida Supreme Court. And we had a very favorable panel on the Florida Supreme Court. We had Justice Fred Lewis, Justice Barbara Perriente, and Peggy Quince that were on the Florida Supreme Court, and they were all a little bit more liberal. The Florida Supreme Court was very evenly balanced at that point. And we knew that they were rotating off. And so we had a decision to make. We could have either filed a motion for reconsideration to the 4th District Court of Appeal and said, hey, you got it wrong. Here's why. Please, if anything, let us go back and retry our bad faith case. But it's improper to simply reverse it because you're putting yourself in the jury's shoes. You're not allowed to substitute yourself for the jury. And the jury decided bad faith. So we could have filed a motion for rehearing.
Would you get an in bonk hearing like everybody or just a rehearing?
Well, a motion, it would have been the same panel of judges as far as I understand. That would probably be a better question for an
Sorry,
appellate
I'm asking
attorney.
legal questions. I don't know. I'm looking at you, but okay. It's okay.
But I think it would have been the same panel. And we were just asking them, hey, you need to reconsider because the relief you granted is a little bit too extreme. But we knew if we would have filed a motion for rehearing, that would have delayed this. And by the time we had an opportunity, and usually those get denied. But we would have delayed it. And by the time that we were able to then take it up to the Florida Supreme Court, we may have lost those 3 justices that we knew would have been favorable.
So the strategy.
We made the decision strategically not to file the motion for rehearing and to just simply get it in front of the Florida Supreme Court while we can. And ultimately, the Florida Supreme Court issued a really great opinion talking about what Florida bad faith law is, what it was meant to be, and reinstated our verdict. And there was no level of appeal beyond that. We had exhausted it all. And ultimately, at the end of the day, justice was served not only for the widow, right? Because what happens is in the underlying case, the widow got a judgment against Geico's insured. And she had not been paid for her loss. She had children and she was left empty-handed. She didn't get paid anything throughout this entire process. When the judgment is entered against Geico's insured, and his name was Jim Harvey. When the judgment was entered against Jim Harvey, that judgment was something that he owed unless we were able to prove bad faith. And so because we were able to prove bad faith, Geico was responsible for paying that. So that judgment was no longer hanging over his head. And this process took so long. Jim Harvey actually died in the process. Having nothing to do with the crash for unrelated reasons, but he died in the process. And we ended up representing his estate against Geico. So it was one of those things where when the Florida Supreme Court ultimately issued its ruling, The widow got paid for her loss, and the estate of Jim Harvey also was absolved of liability for owing that judgment, and it was wiped out.
Okay.
So in essence, everybody won in that case, but
Yeah,
it was
except
all
for Geico.
it was except for Geico, but it was all because Geico
Yeah.
took an unreasonable position because it just didn't want to allow a statement of its insured, which its insured was ready, willing, and able to give.
Right. Wow, that's an incredible story. And you said that took 12 years?
That took 12 years from the date of the crash up through the time that the Florida Supreme Court issued its final ruling.
Man, that's incredible. Sometimes clients just don't understand the legal process and the amount of time. And honestly, 12 years is a really long time.
It's a very long time. We always tell our clients the wheels of justice turn really slowly. And especially since COVID, what we're seeing is, the courts are so backlogged that getting to trial and getting, hearing dates that are close in time is really hard to do.
Yeah.
But that case, there's no doubt, from start to finish, with the number of trials, the appeals, and all of that, was a very long period of time. Not the norm, but it took a while. And yes, it was a lot of work on multiple fronts. Right. By multiple sets of lawyers.
And people don't realize that 12 years that you guys didn't get paid, really. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're working on a contingency, and you guys exhausted every avenue for these clients, which is amazing.
Yeah, everything we do is on a contingency fee.
Yeah.
And when you folks at home are watching the commercials and you hear about these no fee guarantees, that's what everybody does in this line of business. That's what the Florida Supreme Court and the Florida Bar has approved. But yes, it's a big risk. If we ultimately, if the Florida Supreme Court did not reverse it and rule in our favor, all of that work that Sean Dominic put in the early days litigating that case twice, all of the work we put in it over the years with it going back and forth, we would not have received a penny, and all the costs,
tremendous amount of costs. I'm sure you had tremendous amount of costs, like someone to talk about, the loss of income, someone to talk about growing up without a father, right? There's a lot of experts that you brought in, psychological, all sorts, right?
Absolutely. At the underlying level, you've got accident reconstruction experts. You've got the type of experts you just mentioned. In the bad faith case, we had to bring in different types of experts on how to properly handle a claim, how to adjust a claim.
Right.
Attorneys on the proper way to evaluate these claims and the types of information that a plaintiff attorney, a reasonable plaintiff attorney like Sean Dominic, would need in order to recommend settlement to his or her client.
Okay. Wow. And so, it's not just waiting 12 years to get paid. It's front, paying all these costs up front in the meantime, and then waiting to get paid 12 years. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And if you ever are looking for an attorney, whether it's for the bad faith case, whether it's for an underlying catastrophic injury case, you need to make sure that you're hiring a lawyer or a law firm that has the ability, the financial ability to front those types of costs. Because if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't have the financial means to push a case from start to finish, they may try to talk you into settling a case for far less than its value just because they can't front that money to see it through to conclusion.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really important for those that don't know to keep in mind.
Awesome. Great information. And so I didn't realize it was the Harvey case, the Harvey v. Geico case. Yeah, that was incredible. Wow. And so it's amazing. These insurance companies have nothing but time on their hands. They don't die unless they go out of business, but that's usually because they sucked up all the profits and left. But in the homeowners insurance context, that's what they do. But they live forever. They're a corporation. And, you talked about the at-fault driver passing away during all this, having, this massive judgment hanging over his head, probably stressful. This widow waiting to get paid, to get compensated fairly for what happened. And Geico's just like,
Yeah, but think about it. What incentive do big insurance companies have to pay out their money quickly? Right? Because the longer they hold on to it, that money's just in their accounts earning interest.
Right.
And so, yes, Geico had to pay out many multiples of what that judgment was. But in the grand scheme of things, the number of other claims being handled at any given time, the amount of money they're earning just on interest in their bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, while I like to think we made a difference, and I will say this, when the Florida Supreme Court issued that final order, the language in that order was so great. I think it did benefit everybody, whether you were an injured party
Mm-hmm.
or whether you were an insured and you needed your insurance company to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
When that opinion laid out what the law of the land was and the ramifications to an insurance company if it does not pay when it could and should and do its job,
Mm-hmm.
I think cases were settling more quickly.
Yeah.
I think that people were getting what they deserved in a more timely manner. And so
they all tightened up. These insurance companies said, hey, did you see that case? We had to pay out all this money. Make sure we don't do that.
Absolutely. And so to bring this full circle, you asked me why I became a lawyer, and I talked to you about helping people, watching my brothers do what they did and seeing, that they were able to provide for somebody that needed it. Mm-hmm. To see the end result of a case like that, to see it from start to finish and to see the impact that it had on an insurance industry, mm-hmm. and to make that industry, think twice before putting its own interests first,
right,
was pretty fulfilling. And knowing the difference that our firm made in that, not just that those clients' lives, but everybody else was.
Every other case going on in Florida. Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. I've noticed that insurance adjusters over the years, and I've been practicing since 2009, so not that long, but I'm getting there. I'm getting the grays coming in. I didn't shave my beard the other day. I had a bunch of grays. I said, oh no, I'm getting up there. But have you noticed insurance adjusters with less and less training and more, like, I want to say drinking the Kool-Aid, doing as they're told? Than actually adjusting a claim.
So the most eye-opening thing that I have seen, the most shocking thing I have seen, when we, in the bad faith case, take these adjusters' depositions, we're asking them some of the most basic questions. Mm-hmm. I've never adjusted a claim in my life, mm-hmm. but yet we're running circles around a lot of these adjusters because they are just given a script. Mm-hmm. And they're not putting any independent thought into it. And, an insurance company owes what's called a fiduciary duty to its insured, mm-hmm. to its policyholder. It's the highest duty anybody has to anyone. It's the same duty we as a lawyer have to our client. It's the same duty a bank has to you with your money. It's the highest duty one could have. Mm-hmm. And we'll ask these adjusters, what is a fiduciary duty? Now, they have this duty. They mm-hmm. have no idea what it is. Mm-hmm. And to ask basic questions about, just define for me what a catastrophic injury is. Tell me what it is when somebody has paralysis and they can't explain to you some of these things. It's like, and I'm entrusting you to protect me.
Right.
I'm entrusting you to report to your supervisors, to make a recommendation to pay the policy limits or not, yet you don't even understand these basic medical concepts.
Yeah.
And you have access to the internet. You can Google things and you don't do that. Mm-hmm. It's mind-boggling. But yes, I do see a lot of adjusters that just drink the Kool-Aid, mm-hmm. and it doesn't matter how bad it is, they're going to handle the amputee case, the leg off on a motorcycle wreck case. They're going to handle mm-hmm. that the same exact way they're going to handle the scratch on a bumper and the neck pain where there's no real objective proof of injury.
Right. And it's funny, like when I say drink the Kool-Aid, I'm talking about everybody's faking it. Yep. Everybody's exaggerating it. They just want money. And I go, did you see the damage to this car? Did you even look at that? Like, how would you feel if you were in that car? Your uncle, brother, sister was in that car. If the mother-in-law was in the car, everyone would be like, it's okay. But sorry, mother-in-law. I got a really amazing mother-in-law, actually. It's crazy how their training, I feel, is in the information age just gone down and down. And I think the insurance companies do that for a reason. They want to keep pegging that a bar lower and lower for settlement values. And we have guys like you who are there chasing after them when they play too much on the bad faith side, which is incredible.
I think you're right. I think that at the end of the day, when you look at a volume business, the insurance companies make a lot more money because they know people will accept less money. Some attorneys will not litigate. They know that they're going to get the highest offer they're going to get, and they're going to settle the case because they don't want to go in the courtroom and take that risk.
Right.
And so when you look at it from an overall numbers standpoint, the attorneys that litigate cases get better results because they're willing to do that. And insurance companies know which attorneys those are.
Yeah.
But to further one point you made about drinking the Kool-Aid and having the adjusters think that everything is a fake injury, it's all fabricated. The problem we've got is right now we've got a large volume of our population that believe the same thing because of a lot of the billboards that you see. And when we were picking a jury in an auto accident case a couple years back, and I asked the jury, how many of you feel that all of these injuries are fake? And one prospective juror raised her hand and said, it's the auto lotto. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, people are claiming that their lives are ruined when there's barely any property damage. And when I see these billboards where, look how much they got me, people, it's a means of secondary gain. People are using it and they don't want to go to work. So they're going to make up these injuries. And it was pretty eye-opening.
Right. I always tell clients, I say, listen, the guy on that billboard is not the guy who was injured in the car accident. It's his brother who got the check or something like that, not the actual person. Because some of those cases, I look at it and the guy looks normal, but what you don't see is the pain or the multiple surgeries and stuff like that, right? You see a person smiling with a big check.
The billboards are not real life. And I will tell you, having represented hundreds of catastrophically injured people, not one of them at the end of the day was celebrating, wishing that, like, happy they got into that crash. Every single one of them has said, if I could hit a button and go back to that pain-free, happy-go-lucky life I had before I was injured, I would do it in a heartbeat. No amount of money could ever make that okay.
Yeah.
Yet, on a lot of those billboards, it looks like they just won the lotto.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not real life.
Right. It's not real life. And you don't see what's going on behind the scenes either. The pain level, some of those ankles, I go, is that person sitting down? Are they in a wheelchair?
Right.
Well, they don't want to put that in the photo. They just want to put the part where the person's smiling or something. And, you talked about public perception. Everybody thinks their insurance company is there to help them or to save them. And these guys, every time you turn on the TV, I used to see more lawyer commercials than I saw car accident commercials. Everything on the TV now is a car. It's either Geico, Progressive, and these guys are ad after ad talking about how much money you can save if you switch.
Yeah.
But yet they're spending millions of dollars each month on advertising that, you know what, everyone's going to buy Geico, Progressive, State Farm, they're big companies. You're going to buy them. You know them for a while now. If they didn't advertise, they'd probably have about the same amount of customers, yet they're spending all this money and our rates keep rising. And it's like, who are we going to blame? The insurance company who's spending millions a month per market, or the personal injury lawyer who puts up a billboard of a big check? And,
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The insurance industry is making money hand over fist. The insurance lobby has convinced the public that there is an insurance crisis, that there are frivolous lawsuits being filed left and right, and that's just not reality. And it's amazing. And you listen to some of their slogans, like a good neighbor,
right?
Things like that. Meanwhile, you hit the nail on the head. We are led to believe, based on these commercials, we love Flo.
Everybody loves Flo.
We love the little gecko, the Geico gecko. How cute, that if we're ever involved in a crash and we're hurt, they're not gonna screw us over. They're our friends. We pay a premium. We pay for a policy to protect us, and that's what they're there for. So, thank God I bought that insurance policy because they're going to be there and they're going to protect us. Meanwhile, how do insurance companies make money? Collecting premiums and paying out as little as possible.
Yeah.
So if an insurance company can cherry pick a reason to say, oh, we get to deny coverage here and you're not covered because you didn't tell us that you had your brother move into your house, so that's another potentially rated driver, and we didn't know about that, and we never would have issued that policy. So guess what? Thanks for all the premiums for the last 20 years, but we're denying this.
Yeah. Are you talking about United Auto right now? What's going on?
I tell you, one of the reasons I had to get out of Miami, I was living in Miami, practicing in Miami, And United Auto was by far the most difficult insurance company to deal with. And it was drinking the Kool-Aid. It didn't matter if you had a stubbed toe or you lost an arm. Mm-hmm. Your first offer was going to be $1,000.
Maybe you're. I mean, I know you're a much better lawyer than me, but I would get $500 offers. So I think you're worth a little bit more than the extra $5. But I think they still shortchange you. But I get $500 offers from United Auto on every case.
I don't know how they're still in business, but well, I guess I shouldn't say that. The reason they're still in business is because they're the least expensive carrier out there, and it's because
they bill themselves as the least expensive. Right. Yeah,
I'm
the cheapest.
I'm assuming it, but it's because they pay out so little on any claim. And so they're just making money hand over fist.
It's a funny company. They one time, so I do a lot of PIP suits at my firm.
Yeah.
And one of the adjusters calls me up, some guy with a chip on his shoulder. He always wanted to be a cop, but never could quite make it. Mall security wasn't an option for him. I don't know. He calls me, your client's committing fraud. He was in a motorcycle accident 10 years ago. And now he's in a car accident, but he's claiming the herniated discs that he has are from the car accident, not the motorcycle accident. And I go, this accident was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you have MRI reports from that maybe compare? And he goes, no, he never got MRIs back then. And I said, well, okay. So you're telling me that the only MRIs you have are from this accident in a car and that it's impossible for him to get herniated discs. And I'm like, what medical school did you go to? He goes, I'm not a doctor. I'm an SIU adjuster, man. Yeah. And the SIU adjuster is like the wannabe cop. They carry the cell phone on the hip. It looks like a gun, but it's like a hip holster for a phone. And they got the little like security badge thing. And
they find no greater joy in life than to prove somebody may not be telling the truth or to deprive somebody of the money that they just so desperately need.
Yeah. And he wasn't even talking about the injury case because United Auto to sell BI, maybe 10% of their policies do they sell BI. Everything else is PIP only, which I don't know how that's allowed. But anyways, he just didn't want to pay the MRI bills. And I go, dude, you're talking about $900 or something. What, don't you have better things to do? And so we filed a PIP suit and they paid.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, thanks.
But how many people wouldn't file that PIP suit and United Auto would get away with it?
Right.
But to prove your point, there was an accident 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so what he's complaining of now, 10 years later, must be from that. Well, what medical treatment did he have? When was the last date of medical treatment from that first wreck through now? Nothing. So now you're going to claim that all of this stuff is related to something 10 years ago and he was just living through that pain and here was just his lucky opportunity to get involved in this wreck?
Right. I know. Lucky opportunity. I love how you phrase that. Yeah, exactly. So incredible. I love hearing the story because I didn't know it took 12 years. And then just thinking about it, the widow who's waiting for the money. I mean, this is incredible. What other types of cases are maybe unique that you handle besides do you strictly handle bad faith, or is there something unique that maybe you've handled recently?
No, like I said, our firm, we handle a variety of different types of cases, all involving catastrophic injury.
Okay.
An interesting case that we recently got resolved, and it was a confidential result, so I can't use any of the parties' names. But it was a lovely woman who went in for plastic surgery. She went in for a Brazilian butt lift and a tummy tuck.
Okay, a BBL and a tummy tuck. Okay.
Yep. And so she goes in and she did some research on this facility and she had the procedure done. And when she was coming out of anesthesia, it's a known occurrence in the medical field that when people are under the influence of anesthesia and they're coming out of anesthesia, their body temperature is lower and they're usually cold.
Okay.
And so normally facilities will have warming devices, whether it be blankets, heating pads, something called a bear hugger, things that are medically approved to help somebody maintain their body temperature.
Okay.
Well, this facility put this woman on an empty stretcher, uncovered, right next to a space heater, the type of space heater that you would buy at Walmart.
Okay, like a $5, $10 space heater that a lot of the girls in my office have.
Yep. And so here is a woman that is now under the influence of anesthesia. She's asleep. And they wheel her up to this space heater where it is less than a foot from her face. It ultimately resulted in burns to the side of her face, her shoulder,
Wow.
and she had really bad keloid scarring from it. It was a really bad injury.
Wow.
And so you would think, oh my God, that's a slam dunk. If any case was a slam dunk, here you are, you wheel a woman under anesthesia and you put her next to this, I don't want to say open flame, that's exaggerating, but you put her next to something, and she is asleep. She can't even, if she felt the pain, she couldn't move.
Wow.
And so, you'd think that would be a slam dunk, but the defense in that case, they hired defense attorneys. We sued the doctor who is the captain of the ship. We sued the facility.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to make one guess and say this is in Dade County.
Actually, no, this was in Tampa.
Tampa. Wow.
But ultimately, the facility lied to us through their personal counsel and said that there was no insurance. And so we're litigating this case. And I said, you know what? I don't care that you don't have insurance. You horribly wronged this woman. Mm-hmm. And you can afford to pay out of pocket. You've got multiple plastic surgery centers, facilities. Mm-hmm. You can afford to pay. We're coming after you.
Wow.
About a year and a half into the litigation, I get a phone call from a friend of mine that does insurance defense work. And she calls me and I said, Maureen, what do I owe the pleasure of this phone call? And she says, I represent this insurance company. I said, what are you talking about? We were told there was no insurance for this. She goes, nobody ever reported it to us.
Wow.
So the personal counsel lied to us. She told us that she had reported it to the insurance company and the insurance company denied it.
Oh.
Now that's malpractice because she did that, we had already deposed the facility owner. Okay. We had already been involved in litigation. Because it had not been reported to that insurance company, mm-hmm. the insurance company was prejudiced.
Right.
So they didn't. So they said that they're insured. The owner of this facility breached the cooperation clause.
Okay.
There's no insurance.
Wow.
And so it just created this roller coaster of litigation. And like I said, we also sued the doctor, and the doctor's counsel set up surveillance. And our woman had horrible scarring, and some of it, like I said, was keloided. It was all scar tissue, and she could not lift her arm up above her shoulder.
Wow.
And so we get this surveillance video. So for those of you that don't know, when you're involved in any type of injury claim, if it goes into litigation, a lot of times the insurance companies will hire private investigators to tail you with a video camera.
Right.
And try to catch you doing things that you say you can't do.
Like lifting, one of my doctors, he was a chiro, he got caught lifting a big screen TV box.
Right.
But there was no TV inside.
So there you go. And they think they got you.
Right.
So in this case, we go to a mediation, and the defense attorney who I became friendly with over the course of this litigation says to me, I've got something I need to show you in private. And I said, oh boy, this can't be good. And so this was a Zoom mediation. And so we entered our own little private Zoom room, virtual room.
Okay.
And he plays a video for me. And it
your
shows.
Your client was not in the room, or your client was?
No, my client was not in the room. He wanted to show it to me privately.
Okay.
And so it's just the two of us.
Okay.
And here is this woman, my client, playing volleyball. And she's throwing the ball up over her head, spiking it. Mm-hmm. And I'm just watching this, and my blood pressure's going up. I'm doing the best I can to maintain my cool and not let this attorney think it's getting to me. Mm-hmm. But he was a smart attorney, is a smart attorney. He knows how devastating this was to the case. So I go back into my room now with my client, and I said, is there anything you want to tell me? And she says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, so they brought me into this room, and they showed me surveillance of you playing volleyball with your niece. And she says, I don't remember playing volleyball. And I said, come on, that's not something you remember or you don't. You would know. So now I think, and I've been with this client through thick and thin for a number of years.
Sun Tzu. Sow dissent in the enemy.
I am all of a sudden doubting my client. How could you lie to me?
Wow.
And so she says, I just don't think it was me. I would remember. That's not me. So I go back into the room with the defense attorney, and I said, give me a screenshot so I can show my client. Mm-hmm. So she looks at he does it. He sends me a text with it. I then text that picture to my client who is somewhere else. Mm-hmm. She looks at it and she goes, that looks like me, but I think that's my sister.
What?
And I said, come on. I said, I've heard about this happening before, but this has never happened to me.
Yeah.
And so, I go back into the room and I said, good job. You got surveillance of my client's sister. And so he says, well, come back in. We'll show you some more video.
Okay.
So now I'm back watching round 2 after I've now just accused the defense attorney of lying, not intentionally, but he thought it was my client. And I said, it's the sister. And I've taken the bait. It's the sister. It's not my client.
Okay.
So then he shows me video, and now it's who I thought was my client, then I now believe is the sister.
Okay.
And there's another woman that pans into it, and it looks like the sister. And so I went back to my client and I said, no, that's you because your sister's right here. Here's the screenshot. She goes, no, that's my other sister. And I was like, come on, this has got to stop. I'm like, there's no way.
No.
And long story short, it was the other sister. She still had in her drawers at home the exact outfit and sunglasses that she was wearing while playing volleyball.
Okay.
I got my client and her 2 sisters to all stand next to each other, put on the same outfits, and we were able to show that it was not my client, but it was just that you want to talk about a roller coaster, twists and turns of a case from one attorney lying and negating coverage to getting surveillance on your client, believing in them for so many years, all of a sudden doubting it. And then the back and forth, it was pretty awesome. That's to ultimately, at the end of the day, have the client send me pictures of the house that she purchased that she was able to purchase because of the money that we were ultimately able to recover for her.
Okay.
And for her to say, Greg, here's a picture of the house I bought, and I just wanted you to see what a difference you made in our lives. And I think any attorney that is doing this on the catastrophic injury level is having similar type impacts on people's lives, at least if they're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But there's no other job I can think of where you can gather that same type of satisfaction knowing that you're really helping somebody that doesn't have the means to help themselves, and you're doing it by taking on, the insurance industry. You're taking it's David versus Goliath.
It really is, because the doctors, the surgery center, they all have money to pay lawyers. They don't like to pay, but they have the money.
Sure.
And if it wasn't for the ability to do contingency fee work, hey, we only get paid if we win. That lady would have never been able to bring a claim, right? So that's pretty incredible. I got a question. How long was that lady laid out next to the space heater that it caused that much injury?
So
do you know?
They
probably don't document.
The record keeping was awful in this case.
Wow.
And so, they would estimate the times of when the surgery ended and when the patient was wheeled into their PACU, what they call their post anesthesia care unit. And so we don't know for sure, but she was in there long enough. But one of the things I neglected to mention, and I mean, not that the twists and turns weren't enough already, but the records documented that my client was injured while in the recovery room next to the space heater.
Okay.
The nurse, knowing that, put liability on the nurse because she's the one who wheeled my client in and put her there.
Okay.
She lied during her deposition and said that our client woke up during the procedure and was flailing and bumped into the heater that was in the operative suite. And so, of course, now I've got the nurse who owns the facility, the doctor she employed at odds. The doctor saying that never happened. Number one, I never would have a space heater in a surgical suite. That's not sanitary. You got to have everything's got to be sanitized. That's not
sterile environment.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely sterile. And there's no way I would let that happen. And she never woke up during surgery. So I've got people lying, pointing the fingers at each other. And it was, at the end of the day, looking back, like, come on, you can't make this stuff up. But at the time, it was unbelievably frustrating.
Yeah.
To have the delays that were caused by all these shenanigans.
Wow. Yeah. Shenanigans. I love that word.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you on a personal side, what do you like to do for fun? What excites you outside of the legal world?
So aside from spending time with my family, I absolutely love fishing. I growing up in Miami, I grew up on the water, and if my happy place, the place where I can go and clear my head and not think about the tragedies that our clients have suffered is out on the water.
Yeah.
Fishing rod in my hand, calm seas.
What do you like to fish for? Anything in particular?
Anything offshore. I do a lot of deep sea fishing, but my latest passion is sword fishing.
Okay.
Which is a lot of fun. You're fishing in really, really deep water, from 1,500 feet of water to 18 to 1,900 feet of water, and with 15 pounds of weight to get the bait all the way down to the bottom. And you're bringing up fish that, can be upwards of 500, 600, 700 pounds.
Wow. And so, how do you get it on the boat? I mean, that's
hopefully you've got somebody with you that can help. If not, I had one that we caught. I was by myself and I had to tow it in behind the boat. I tied a rope around its tail and I dragged it 34 miles in because I couldn't pull it in the boat by myself.
Wow, is that big?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool feeling when I pulled up to a fuel dock and said, "I need your guys' help," and they helped me hoist this fish into the boat at that point. But not the same feeling as helping a client, but it was a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Pulling monsters out of the deep ocean like that.
Pretty cool.
Tough. Yeah. You fish mostly here, or do you go to the Bahamas, or where do you?
So I every once in a while I'll go to the Bahamas, but by and large, the vast majority of my fishing is right in my backyard in Palm Beach County.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to get. If you ever go to the Bahamas, always register. You don't You don't want to go to Bahama jail.
I've got some friends that like to flirt with that a little bit, and they want to go over, fish for the day, and come back. And you just got to hope that the Bahamian Coast Guard isn't over there and catch you.
I heard a story about one of the doctors here in Palm Beach County. He called everybody he could from a Bahamian jail. Please, I need $10,000. These guys have me tied up.
It is not an uncommon occurrence. Because what happens is, it sounds like you've done this before, not broken the law, but you've got over and you fish the Bahamas.
Yeah.
So as you know, sometimes you cross over and the first thing you need to do is clear customs.
Right. And
the customs office is on Bahamian time. So you get there at 7:30 in the morning, 8 a.m. You left your dock at 5 a.m. to make it over there.
2.5 hour trip or so depending on the weather.
And you're just sitting there waiting for them to show up. And 9 o'clock rolls around, 10 o'clock rolls around. They haven't opened, and you're missing valuable fishing time. So a lot of people figure, what are the chances they're going to catch me? I'm just going to go fish and head back.
Yeah,
not worth the risk.
Not worth the risk. No. But Bahamas is beautiful to go fishing. I personally like scuba diving more. But I haven't gone fishing, and just one day we were just reeling in like a massive amount of tuna. Followed the birds, and it was like just food just pouring out of the ocean. We got so much fish. I was like, we got to freeze half of this stuff.
I'm guessing yellowfin tuna.
Yeah, everywhere. Oh my gosh.
that is one of the best fisheries. If when you're over there and the yellowfins are biting the way that you experienced it, it is. Words can't explain how amazing that is. And to do it, I mean, it used to be that you could go do that it was a relatively common occurrence to go there and do that. Mm-hmm. Now, when you go, you don't find them quite as often. And when you do, the sharks are so thick, they're swimming with the tunas. And if you can catch one out of every 15 you hook without the sharks devouring them, you're lucky.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that. I personally went on a shark dive, and it was an out-of-body experience. It was so incredible. Nuts. In the Bahamas. And the worst part about it is the only guy to ever die on that particular tour happened to be another lawyer. And I was like, oh my God, how many lawyer jokes
was that before? Yeah, was that before you went or after?
10 years before me.
So you were just hoping that those sharks didn't develop a taste for lawyers.
I was hoping he was like a corporate lawyer, Yeah, maybe, I was like, I don't know, man, I'm a PI guy, maybe. But
that's funny.
Yeah, so it was out of body experience watching these amazingly powerful sharks. I mean, I was in the water with 50 to 100 sharks and tiger sharks.
Yeah,
lemon sharks, nurse sharks, reef sharks. The reef sharks were, babies compared to the tigers. They were 15 feet big.
That's crazy.
The time that we went fishing, though, we were just reeling in these fish. I mean, we had sashimi on the boat. We got back. We had this. My friend caught some hogfish. He spearfished some hogfish. We got lobsters. I mean, the Bahamas, the seafood is out of this world. When you just go down and get
endless.
it.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, and. I heard Florida was like that at one point, but there's just so many people nowadays overfishing. Yeah. And we really gotta kind of deal with that a little bit. But I went to Colombia recently for a scuba diving trip, and there's all these guys out on the water, and they're all there in like a kayak or whatever, small boats. And I dove. I didn't see many. The biggest fish I saw was like this big, you know? So I'm like, what are these guys fishing for all day? But I heard 20, 30 years ago, it was massive. They would just go fish everything and go sell it out on the beaches, and people would just buy them right there. And whatever they didn't sell, they ate. But it was all, you know, now it's overfished 20, 30 years later. They don't have regulations like we have here, where you can only, you know, do so much. So awesome. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to get in touch and they say, hey, this guy's amazing. I've got an insurance bad faith case. I've got a medical malpractice case. I need some advice, a consultation. I'm assuming you guys offer free consultations.
Absolutely.
And how do they get a hold of you?
So you can either call us. You know, the office line is area code 561-625-6260. My cell phone is 561-866-5649. And we also, you can go on our website and you'll learn a lot about all the attorneys in the firm, our areas of practice, the types of cases we handle. And the firm website is pbglaw.com, like Palm Beach Gardens Law.com.
Awesome. And you guys handle cases statewide. Do you guys handle cases in other states as well?
We do.
Okay.
It's not uncommon for other attorneys to bring us in to help them try cases around the country.
Bringing out the big guns for you.
Well,
on a case, yeah.
You said it, I did not.
Yeah, well,
yes.
hey.
Yeah, there are a lot of attorneys that make a really good living without trying cases. And again, I think they're doing a disservice to their clients if they're forcing the settlement. And the ones that recognize, hey, I want to bring in somebody else to help us try the case are doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, you know, they're going to get full value. And insurance companies will pay more money to the lawyers that try cases than the ones that don't.
Especially with the results that you have.
Knock on wood, let's keep them coming. But
awesome,
yeah, I gave the website, but if you also just Google Dominic Cunningham and Yaffa, that'll also take you to the website as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Appreciate you being here at the FJA and taking time out of your day to do this. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Cool. Thanks, man.